Hi, Daniel.
Hi there.
How's it going?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good. You getting some spring-like weather yet?
We've had spooky warm weather. It's
All
with
right.
70 degrees yesterday, and um, today it will be similar, sunny. It feels like late May instead of mid-March. It's
I
kind of
know.
weird.
I think I saw something about some weird weather pattern where, yeah, it's like really cold on the West Coast and it's pushing all this heat into the central mountains or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
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 Well, yeah, I guess we'll take it if it's nice. Unless you're trying to extend the ski season.
Yeah.
Mhm. So thanks for joining early. People usually trickle in, as you know,
Hmm.
these things. And there's Carly. Hi, Carly.
One sec. I'm just gonna recording and welcome everyone to Ecosystem and Governance Working Group meeting here at Trust Over IP. I'm assuming everyone can see the minutes. So antitrust policy notice, this is important that we are reminded to adhere to the meeting agenda and not participate in activities prohibited under antitrust and competition laws. That members who aren't presenters who have signed the necessary agreements are permitted to participate beyond an observer role. So this is because of IP rights and contributions. Um, then, is there any new people who would like to introduce themselves? So we'll give a pause, and or if you're shy, and you can also put it in the chat.
I think we recognize everybody here.
Yeah.
Steve,
Okay.
Kevin, yep.
Yep.
Colin's here. Yep.
Okay. So then on to upcoming presentations here. April 2nd, Trusted Caller ID. April 16th is Open Discussions, Biometrics, and Digital Trust Ecosystems. And then after that will be our usual IIW recap, where those of us who couldn't attend, like to hear from those who could attend so that we can all be caught up on what's going on. Is there a governance architecture task force update?
Anybody here? No.
No.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, just to
Yeah.
clarify, that meeting is now asynchronous and basically consists of discussions that happen on Discord. And I feel like there are a lot of things happening with the different folks that are part of that, but because we don't have a regular meeting, there's no specific update.
Okay. Bite Size Trust. There is now a Bite Size Trust webpage on Trust Over IP that needs content to be updated. So I'll have to get on that. We haven't released some videos lately because content keeps changing even after I've finished the damn thing. So yeah, I think this Friday though I'm going to release zero knowledge proofs. It is what it is. They're always when you look back, you're like, oh, they're all crap. But at the time you produce it, it's great.
Give yourself credit, Carly. They're awesome.
Great work. Yep.
Don't you look back at your old work and are like, oh, that was shit. That's pretty much the entirety of my oof. Anyway, so today then, Eric, do you want to introduce our speakers today?
Yeah, sure. If I can share the screen real quickly, just a quick
Okay,
screen share.
I'm gonna stop share. Did I stop sharing?
You did, it worked.
It worked.
Oh, very good. And let me find that guy. There. So you can see my screen. There we
Hmm.
go. So very quickly, I'm excited for this presentation specifically because it's a great application of the technologies we're all familiar with for a great use case. And I was able to participate working with Andrew and Tim and the GSMA Foundry team and the Provenant team. And everybody else has been part of this project. So I'm really happy about this. And just a really quick introduction. Not long ago, this is how I thought that telco still worked, where you had somebody calls on one side and on the other end somebody answers, and I thought, well, this is the way it should be, and you know who's calling, and the person who's answering the phone on the other side knows also who's calling, and while that's not the case today, I think this is what we need to strive for, and this is what Andrew and Tim are going to talk about, is making sure that however many hops there are in a call, however many middlemen, middle organizations there are that transfer that call, we should still know who's on either side of that call. The other reason I'm really excited about this is because in this project, we are using and leveraging a lot of the technologies that have been incubated or are part of the Linux Foundation decentralized trust organization and trust over IP. So LEIs that we're all familiar with Glyph, Carry, ACDCs. And potentially, I don't know if a lot of you know, but there's Kamara APIs, which are also part of the Linux Foundation decentralized trust. That might be part of the evolution of this open verifiable communications. So those are the three real big reasons that I'm excited to have Andrew and Tim present for you. So I will now turn it over to you guys to present open verifiable communications. And
thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing.
Great. Let me just have a go at seeing if I can share desktop. I'm gonna not that one. There we go. Right. Oh no! Allow Zoom Workplace to share your screen.
Or
I may have to.
This is right after your new installation.
Do you want me to share, Andrew, and
Right.
you can tell me when to click?
Give me 2 seconds. I have to quit and reopen. I'll be right back.
Okay.
This is what happens when you get a new computer.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everything else that you thought was already installed, it turns out it's not. All the passwords you thought you knew.
And they snuck in a quick update yesterday, and I couldn't stop sharing my screen earlier today. So it's not just you.
Oh, okay.
I might actually just quickly test sharing my screen while Andrew's
Good
run
idea,
off
Tim.
and back, just to make sure that it works for me. Can everyone got my screen?
Yes, open verifiable communication demo.
Good. Okay, so I'm good. I don't need to panic for the next few minutes.
And after you've reinstalled everything, you realize that you didn't write down those usernames and passwords.
Yeah. Well, I made the wise decisions. I don't use Zoom very often. I made the wise decision of using the browser to run Zoom, which obviously my browser already has permissions for share. So that's probably why I haven't had an issue.
No issues, right? Is
So
there?
maybe-
Yeah. Oh, Andrew's back.
Partially.
Right. Sorry about that, guys. I'm clearly technologically challenged. Allow desktop to share. If this doesn't work, there we go. My goodness.
All good.
There was a time in as Eric's slide showed when Alice called Bob and it just worked, and now we're in a world of pain where communications is far too rich and sophisticated and very often just doesn't work. But also it's a world where actually all of the norms that we used to have back in the 80s before deregulation and the move to IP broke the whole world of trusted communications. And our intention is to bring back that level of trust that used to be caused by both a closed garden, where you could be sure that the person whose phone was calling you was on the same network as your phone, and the ability for information to be presented securely across the network. The problem we face today in telecoms is that we are at the heart of a significant impact on the citizen. According to all the latest research, there's about $1 trillion in fraud on the consumer happens on an annual basis, and a significant proportion of this is driven by or enabled by telecoms. For example, in the UK, about half of advanced payment push fraud started with a call or a text. Nearly half of the global population encounters a scam attempt every week, and it's essentially trivial today for a bad actor to impersonate another person in a phone call. And this is not the peak of the problem. It's only the beginning of the problem. The cost of fraud is about to drop to effectively zero. Fraud is no longer kind of an artisanal activity, it's an industrial activity. And calling party impersonation, which is what we're really focused on here, is a $1 trillion problem. We are a small consultancy company. Tim and I work together under the aegis of Rich Connections. We've been working for many years as executives in the telecoms industry in various places. And about a year ago, we took to the GSMA a proposal that we fundamentally reshape how the voice network works around decentralized identity. And the GSMA, who, as many of us know, are the foundational technology setting body for the mobile industry, agreed with our proposal. And we established, first of all, what's called a Foundry project, which essentially is a community project of the willing, where we demonstrated what we're about to show you here, open verifiable calling. We built a pilot platform, and at MWC Mobile World Congress a couple of weeks ago, we showed the first fruits of that project, which was a true end-to-end verifiable call. The Foundry project had a number of goals. The first of all, which is to prevent the impersonation that we see globally in the voice network. At the same time, to ensure legitimate number use. It's sort of the other side of the same problem. How do you ensure that a party who has been granted the right to use a phone number can prove to the terminating party that they are the person with the right to use that number? Part of this is about improving the experience for the citizen. Part of it is also about enabling enforcement. In telecoms, it's a terribly difficult problem to track down a bad actor. Bad actors can move very quickly. Bad actors can be very difficult to trace from the complex inter-carrier network of communications that underpins the modern PSTN. And we wanted to build a solution that enabled much faster response by enforcement bodies to provably bad traffic. Ultimately, our goal is to protect the citizen, but to do so without breaking legitimate services. Very often when regulators, for instance, start to impose actions that they want telecoms operators to undertake, the result might occasionally improve service for the citizen, but very often it also breaks legitimate use of numbering assets and services. So we wanted to build a system that was transparent and could support good actors as well as keep bad actors out. And we wanted to do it through decentralized identity, which, as you'll see, is the magic ingredient from a public communications network point of view. So what is the problem in the PSTN? The problem really is that trust has broken down because there is no way of passing identity from an originating carrier to a terminating carrier. All that passes along this piece of spaghetti between the two carriers is minimal information. You can simply guarantee that what gets to the other end is an indication of a guess at the originating phone number, some good definition of the phone number they're trying to call, and probably a time of day at which the call was originated. But we don't know who is making the call, and it's effectively trivial for any party to fake the originating phone number. Now, originating carriers, where the call actually comes from, have quite a lot of controls over what traffic they're sending. They often have quite a lot of regulatory requirements that they need to fulfill. If they want to give an originator a phone number, they have to KYC, KYB that customer. In some cases, they do have to do some form of cryptographic proof of the rights of the originating party. In the US and 2 other countries around the world, there is an X509 based service called Stir and Shaken that allows the originating party to attest some basic information about the originating number. Not much more than, yes, I gave this number to the person who's using it. Not going to tell you anything about the person, but I'm confident that they're allowed to use this number. And then there are a whole set of other controls that they are supposed to implement and very often don't implement, to do with keeping control over phone numbers that they allocate. But the problem is that almost all of that information disappears immediately the call leaves my network. Implicitly or explicitly, what is gone from the originating network does not arrive at the terminating network. And yet, the terminating network carrier is the guy who has the obligation to protect from harm. The terminating carrier is supposed to look after their customer. They're supposed to not let bad actors and bad phone numbers onto their customers' handsets. And yet they have no information that comes with that call. And so they have to guess at whether this is a bad actor. And they have to go through ugly analytic processes to try and bash down bad actors, determine what they do and what they look like. They look at call volumes, call routing, historical behavior, analytics, reputation systems, and they make a guess as to whether this call is likely to be a bad call or not. Now, all of us, around this call are familiar with receiving information on my handset, which purports to tell me that this is a likely spam call, or purports to tell me that this call comes from my bank. And very few of us are aware of just how deeply that information is flawed, how little that information is based on evidence, and how much of that information is based on guesswork derived from questionable sources. And so we fail in protecting citizens from impersonation fraud on phone networks, because the evidence that is available on the origination side has to get turned into inference on the terminating side. There is no mechanism for passing the evidence across. Our objective in open verifiable communications is to restore trust by standardizing the evidence that should be gathered by an originating party, and presenting mechanisms by which that evidence can be passed and made available to the terminating carrier and ultimately to the handset of the person being called. So open verifiable calling, now rebranded as open verifiable communications, because as you'll see, our next step is to do this not just for voice, but for every part of the communications network, is to generate evidence that travels with the message. Tim, do you want to give a quick presentation of what we achieved at this point?
Sure, I can run through the demo that we did at Mobile World Congress this year. So let me just share my screen.
I think I need to stop. Do I need to stop sharing?
Okay. I'm afraid you do.
Man, oh, no, okay. Get back to the right part of Zoom.
Yeah.
Here we go. No, wrong one. still asking me to share, not to stop sharing. Sorry.
All right. Yeah, you might have
Oddly
to
enough, somebody was talking about this earlier.
yeah, you might have to drop off the call.
Okay,
and then
well,
going back in.
what I found is the stop share used to be under the toolbar under sharing. Now it's on the far right of the toolbar.
Stop. Oh man, this is painful. How can people get it's so wrong? Right, I'm going to do the leave.
The hard stop.
Okay, let me see if I can share now. I can share now. Cool.
Right.
This same thing
Okay.
happened to us in the meeting yesterday, Trust RP steering committee meeting. So it's a Zoom issue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so fed up with Zoom. I did a whole product redesign for it. So,
right, let's get started. So, what I'm going to talk to you about today is a couple of examples. This is a demo we ran at Mobile World Congress this year, and it will show you a little bit about what we've been up to and just go into a bit of detail that Andrew ran through. So we'll start off with Rich Connections, our small consultancy. We want to originate calls, send them around Europe, and we want people to know who's calling. But more importantly, and slightly bigger, we've been working with Microsoft on this problem, and they've got international call centers based all over the world that originate calls all over the world. And they've got a lot of problems where people no longer answer these calls. And this might be because they don't recognize that it's Microsoft calling. It might be because the call is getting marked as spam or scam on their phone. Lots of reasons why people are not answering the phone. So what we're going to show to you is a call arriving on a handset, and it's actually on this handset sat on my desk, which is plugged into my laptop. It's a standard handset running a Spanish prepaid SIM that we bought for the show that's still running the same SIM it was before. And we're going to see a call arriving on it. And many people may be familiar with what a branded call looks like, but this is a little bit different. So underpinning the information that is displayed on the screen, we've got a set of rich credentials that really prove things about the originator of the call. So we've got a credential that proves that Microsoft has the right to use the telephone number that the call is coming from. We've got a credential that shows that it is Microsoft, and this is linked back to the LEI, as Andrew had said earlier. So it's a unique pointer back to that actual legal entity. And then we've also got a credential that proves that Microsoft has the right to use the brand that they're using and displaying. Now, there is also a fourth credential, which is a credential that grants the right of another company to originate or start a call on behalf of that organization, of Microsoft in this case. So I don't know. We obviously in the telco world are very familiar with these players, but Infobit, Twilio, and Vonage are platforms that allow organizations to make phone calls. Now, Microsoft could make these phone calls themselves directly from their own systems. They could sign these calls themselves, but often with small businesses, and Rich Connections may be a better example, where we don't necessarily want to have all of that infrastructure nailed up to start making phone calls. So we might use one of these big platforms to manage our phone calls. So think of it as an online PBX or anything along those lines for a cloud communications platform for making calls. We're going to see a call go out of one of these platforms, and it's going to go into the public telephony network, which I've shown as a nice grey cloud here. And there's a good reason for that. Is inside this is a complete mess. This is telco networks that have been built up over ages. You put the call in, a call comes out the other end, but from neither end do you really know where the call has gone or how it's got there. And we're going to pass the call out into the network. In our case, we're going to demonstrate that the call is verified by a transit operator in the network, and we'll see that happen. And then we'll see a call arrive on the handset. So if I just flip over to this screen over here, what you've got on the right-hand side is a screen mirror of the phone that's sat on my desk. And on the left-hand side, I'm logged into Vonage's, Twilio's, and Infobit's originating platforms. I'm going to use Infobit for this demo. I've got this set up, logged in as Microsoft, and I've got this set up to send a phone call from this US telephone number. And I'm going to call the number on the Spanish SIM card in the device sat here. So we'll just let that call set up. It's ringing, and we can see on the device that we've got Microsoft Corporation displayed. And all of the information that you've seen displayed on that phone has been displayed based on the verification of the credentials and the information that has been passed with the call. If we just pop back to our slide deck here, what we'll just do is explain a little bit about how that evidence has been built up, and then I'll come back and explain how we actually got the call to you. So in OVC, what we're starting with is probably the most important thing. Just being able to get information across with the call is one thing, but getting the right governance to make sure that you are correctly proving who is making the call is perhaps even more important. So we're starting off with the concept of a global governance authority, a placeholder for this demo, but logically somebody like GSMA or a global entity could sit in this position, and they would set the vetting standards for OVC. We then got a concept of policy administrators. Now, this layer needs to have some local information. And for example, in telecoms, as in many things, every country has a different way of interpreting or a different way of applying rules. So local policy administrators take the vetting standards that have been set by the governance authority and they apply them in the local context. And they then will go and vetting agents to make sure that those standards are being met, taking account of the local regulation and taking account of the vetting standards that have been set. And these are then formed into credentials that are issued to these vetters to enable them to vet in certain countries and for certain types of communication. For the trial, we've had three big vetting organizations, Brandassure, Numerical, and Aegis, who are all kind of well known in that space, who vet businesses right now. These vetters have then gone on and they've vetted Rich Connections and they've vetted Microsoft, and they've issued credentials that represent the assets that they've vetted for those organizations. And these are the credentials that have been issued. One thing to note here is that part of the challenge we've tried to solve is there's no point in just solving the large corporation side of the problem. We also need to solve the small business side of the problem. And that's, I'm just going to jump over it here. And that's why we've got this concept of a fourth credential to enable the originator of the call to be delegated by this organization. So Rich Connections can decide, I want Infobip to originate my calls, so I'm going to issue a credential to Infobip, which allows them to sign traffic on my behalf. It's important, as you know, you guys work in this space a lot, so you'll know, but these credentials are all owned and managed by these organizations. They're not controlled by another entity, but it's up to Rich Connections or Microsoft to control these credentials. They can revoke them. So Rich Connections can decide, I don't want Infobip to originate my calls anymore. I can revoke that credential, and then they will no longer verify at the far end. And again, probably don't need to explain to this audience about this, but all of these credentials are chained back up through one another. So right back to the governance authority. So by chaining these credentials back, it means that immediately, if I can trust this governance authority and I trust the processes that they have implemented, then I can trust the communication that I'm getting without necessarily having to understand the nuance inside the credential. It also has the advantage that if we decide that Aegis is being a bit naughty and vetting people that they shouldn't vet, that credential can be revoked and have a cascade effect down all of the other credentials that that Aegis have issued, which has a double benefit of not only preventing communications in future, but also being a real incentive for somebody, a vetter, to make sure they play by the rules. So what I'm just going to do is just quickly show you what the evidence looks like. But before I do that, I'm going to make another phone call, but I'm going to use this telephone number, which is another US phone number. But this is a number where Microsoft have revoked one of the credentials. And if I go off and make the same phone call, what I'm going to see is rejected. The call hasn't even got as far as the handset. And this is because, as we spoke earlier, there was a network in the middle that is verifying calls and has rejected this call before it's even reached the handset. I'll explain a little bit more about the call flow in a minute. But if we go off and have a quick look in here, I need to log in again, probably. So if we have a look, this is actually the call that I've just made, the failed call that I've just made. And we can go and just have a look at the detail of the credentials that we've got in here. So we can see our 3 credentials, the identity credential, the telephone number, and the brand credential. And we can see the credential that's revoked, that is the TN credential. And we can see all the detail about this and the full chain of trust right the way to the governance authority. And this includes sort of little sub-branches like who actually vetted Aegis as a vetter, and linking back also to Glyph as a root of trust for them as well. So all of this is built in and is visible in the detail of the communication. What I'm just going to do now is just pop back here and explain what you've just seen. So you've seen a dossier that has been created, which is the collection of credentials. In fact, we were looking at Microsoft and that dossier of credentials with a delegated sign, in this case, to Infobip. What's happened there is Infobip has sent a request to Provenant, who are the technology provider on this project, who have signed the call and provided back a compact view of this in the form of a STIR passport. I'm not going to go into too much detail about what a STIR passport is, and many people will know, but basically it's a standard within SIP for passing secure headers across the network, and it's used as part of STIR Shaken, which is used in like Canada, US, and France. But this isn't a Shaken passport; it's a VVP passport. And in fact, Daniel, who's on the call, is the author of the VVP spec from Provenant, so he can explain to all of us in a minute how all of that works. That's then gone to Infobip, and Infobip have sent that passport off into the network. It's hit a carrier called Wavecrest, who have been the one doing the verification in network. That passport has gone off to the verification service. It's been verified, and for the good call, the call continued, and for the bad call, the call was rejected by Wavecrest. It's then gone off to a terminating operator. It's arrived at the handset, and the handset has then made a request out to an out-of-band passport cache to go and find a record of the call. It's then verified that using Provenant's verification service, which has returned the cryptographic data to the handset, and it's displayed the information like the brand name and logo on the handset. And that's basically what we have seen. I'm guessing we're going to Daniel next, but that's the end of the end-to-end demo, and I'm guessing we'll pick up questions on that at the end. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Yeah, great.
So
Thank you, Tim.
You know how to stop sharing. This is clearly
I use browser version of Zoom.
Is that right? Okay, right, fine.
Yeah.
So let me carry on with my next steps. Right. So what you've heard is sort of the key elements of what we're attempting to achieve. Is first of all,
we're not seeing your screen yet.
You're not seeing my screen?
Not yet. And for all the questions, we'll get to the questions. We'll take note of them. And if they're not answered in the chat, we will answer those at the end.
It's now asking me a bunch of questions about how I share screens. Oh my God.
Well, or I can, or Tim, do you have the rest of the presentation you want to share? Oh,
there we can see it.
Great. Good. My competence with the technology is clearly improving. Right. So a number of critical things that you see. First of all, telecoms in general has never respected the existence of an accountable party. Telecoms to date has always taken any attestation, proof, knowledge, or trust from an originating carrier. In our case, we don't believe that that is fit for purpose, and so we introduce the concept of the accountable party being the organization that actually owns the credentials that are going to be presented. And that has some very important aspects. It means that there is portability in the accountability that can be passed down. So an originating a party passes important information down the chain, and what is today inference about who is calling and why, based on guesswork, heuristics, all post-event and all probabilistic, gets replaced by provable accountability, explicit identity of the originating party, wrapped with cryptographic proof that comes with the call, and it replaces a heuristic process with a deterministic process. Secondly, we focus very hard on what vetting actually means. How do you actually prove that a party is who they say they are? How do you prove that a party has the right to use the assets that they are attesting, whether that's a phone number or a name or a logo? And that's based on best practice in the industry. It's also based on leveraging important capabilities that have been developed by other parties. So the ID, for instance, the legal existence of an organization follows Glyph guidance, and we're closely related to what Carla and team are doing at Glyph. Then telecom specific rights, the right to use a particular phone number, which is a regulatorily variable activity in some countries. It's very different from other countries. That vet must be encapsulated in the resulting credential. Intellectual property must be vetted, my right to use a name, my right to use a logo that I'm not impersonating and passing off as another party. And then my rights to originate a particular type of communication. Can I create a chat bot that talks to my customer? Can I make a phone call? Can I participate in a conference call? And there may be specific regulated rights. Am I allowed to issue information that makes a financial offer in this communication? Am I allowed to communicate healthcare related information and so forth? So all of this must be determined in a robust and replicable fashion at the originating party, the accountable party's end. That evidence then becomes portable. A collection of identity, assets, obligations, rights must be able to be passed and accepted by all operators. I can't tell you how transformative that sentence is, that I can assert my rights and I don't have to choose which operator I'm vetting myself against, but I can send this information to any terminating operator and they can verify that that information is valid. That the same vet can allow me to make a phone call or a message or participate in a communication flow. That I have a non-jurisdictional evidence platform, so I can gain my rights in one country and make a phone call where that information is passed to another country. And where I can take my portable rights and I can use those with any originating carrier I want to. So I'm not locked down to have to use AT&T for making my calls because I've been given a phone number by AT&T. At the heart, this requires a root of trust, of course, as we all know on this call. This is a new concept for telecoms, the idea that actually trust must be a transitive activity, which ultimately must rely on a small number, not necessarily one, but a small number of trusted parties. And so in our project and where we're working towards in the market is that the GSMA constructs a root of trust. There may be other parties who do this, but the GSMA will be the first to actually implement the concept of a trust anchor for telecoms communications. The root of trust then grants a policy administrator credential to an organization who is then authorized to qualify vetters. Vetters are the parties that where we'll have many of them in each country who actually go out to the accountable body and check their rights to use phone numbers, to use names and brands. And the authorized vetting agent gains a credential that specifies exactly what they are entitled to vet for. I am authorized to vet for service X in territory Y. And the result then is a set of credentials that may come from multiple vetting agents. The accountable body, the brand, is able then to assert, I am Acme Limited, I'm using this particular phone number with this logo, I'm permitted to engage in this type of communication service. And by the way, the great thing about telecoms is the volume of in which we operate. We are being asked to participate in projects which require the vetting of hundreds of millions of businesses. One particular party has 200 million businesses on their books, and they want to have a significant proportion of those organizations receiving verifiable credentials to entitle them to participate in outbound business communications. The result of that vet is delegated to an organization that can make calls, send communications, what we call an aggregator. And the aggregator then presents those credentials, as Tim showed you in the call, to the terminating operator, who can verify that information and optionally pass that information right down to the handset, where the handset can also verify that information. All of this then allows rich, robust feedback mechanisms to also cut in. An MNO can notify the root of trust that some particular communication which should have been trusted is coming with some questions associated with it. And of course, once one MNO can verify the information, the same information can be passed to MNO 2, 3, 4, 5 without the originating party or the aggregator having to have any form of direct relationship with each individual operator. Hugely important for a distributed network, which the PSTN is. I've asked Daniel, CTO of Provenant, to spend a few minutes just walking us through areas that will be far more familiar to you guys than they ever were to the audiences that Daniel and I have been talking to over the last little while. We have been talking to technologists in the PSTN space. So, let's go into these slides with more or less detail as you wish. Daniel, over to you.
Yeah, the list of technologies that we used to pull off this demo is actually quite a bit longer than this, but these were kind of the headline items here. So we used LEIs, and of course there's an ISO standard for that. And you'll see that each of these bullet items has some kind of a statement about a standard here, because one of the things that this audience is very hungry for is the message that what they're doing plays into a larger strategy. And they have loved the concept of an LEI because telco would like to see the activities that they're doing be compatible with important work that's been done by the financial industry and by Glyph. So they're trying to not invent an independent thing, but rather invent something that reinforces a movement that they believe in. So the reason that we picked these particular technologies, and by the way, on the last screen, I just want to credit Trust over IP. Many of the standards that we're referencing, are things that have been developed here in a Trust over IP context. There's lots of reasons behind the specific choices, but again, these are kind of the headlines for them. We felt that it was crucial that we have less reliance on administrative trust and more on cryptographic trust. So a big problem with the way telco has tried to solve these issues in the past is that they've set up some giant database in the sky. And we really couldn't do that here. There's regulatory reasons why You can't have a giant database in the sky, and you have telephone calls that regularly cross jurisdiction boundaries, and the governance has to cross those boundaries too, and you can't do it if you have a big database in the sky. So anyway, that's that. Another big point that landed very big is that we can't build a brand new system that's going to lock down and secure telco for the world and not have it be ready for post-quantum. And so we needed to give pick technology components that are completely comfortable with post-quantum stuff. The other thing that's really subtle that I think the ecosystem is gradually waking up to is the idea that you need to analyze your solution, not just in terms of what it can achieve when you build the evidence, but how often you have to rebuild the evidence. And this is really quite important. If you create evidence and then let's say, every 3 months you have to rotate your keys and it invalidates an X509 certificate that you were using or something like that, you're really building into the ecosystem a continuous tax to recreate the evidence on a regular basis. And we felt like that was just intolerable. So the evidence that we're building here, the collection of things that Microsoft owns, is essentially permanent. It's not totally permanent because if the company changes some attribute, obviously you want to change it. But it's as permanent as the facts are that it's tracking. And that means there's no ongoing maintenance other than the maintenance implied by real changing conditions, which is great. Then the last bullet on this page is there is a path so that evidence from other ecosystems can come in. So this set of choices is friendly to the idea that if somebody has a piece of evidence that they want to cite in a dossier, and that evidence is a W3C verifiable credential or an X509 certificate or an SD JOT or something, all of that evidence can be cited by a dossier, and that very efficient movement of evidence with the message across the channel can carry those citations. So it's not an exclusive club here. It's let's get the world of evidence available to telco. I think that's about everything I wanted to say on this slide, but I could answer questions. I think that's my last slide. Does anybody have any they want to ask?
Right. And thank you, Daniel. And maybe Andrew, Tim, we've got about 10 minutes left. And so if we want to go to questions and answers for anybody, including these technical questions. Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
I have no need to. There are 2 or 3 other slides, but I think given the timing, I would prefer that we do move into discussion mode. But I've got to find out sharing.
It might not. Oh,
Did I do it?
Off sharing.
You did. Yeah, that's great. Well, so thank you. I mean, we could wrap it up with with some questions, and there's questions in the chat, but also anybody who wants to ask a question live, feel free to raise your hand, and we can start with Daryl while I sift through the chat questions.
Congrats, folks. This is really fantastic. When does it start to go operational?
So so there's 2 pieces to this. One is the vetting ecosystem, and the other is ensuring that we can build essentially the transit of the credentials in each of the communications flows. And we're kicking off a pilot project with all of the UK operators as of next week, actually, on portable vetting based on verifiable credentials. It's a pilot project, not a POC, as in it is designed to implement and impact operational processes.
Yeah. So it's an operational. It's a step towards operationalization.
It is. The
Awesome.
challenge,
Congrats.
the challenge they've given us is that within 6 months they want to have operational improvements based on decentralized credentials in vetting. At the same time, in parallel, we're running a number of work streams that are what the GSMA calls A35 processes, which are essentially standard setting processes, looking at how to use those verifiable credentials in each of the various communications channels, voice calls, messaging, and generally Kamara network APIs. So, we want to bring together the concept of utilizing a Kamara API along with the idea of enterprise identity, delegated rights, provable rights, non-personal rights. That's whole framework for actually how do you bring identity and rights into distributed APIs.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mackie.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, that's a great presentation. So my question was with respect to, the general reception, like how do you see the global operators, telecom providers and others coming on board and, like buying in this idea, basically?
So interestingly, this is actually a capability that brings benefits to everyone in the chain, and that's quite rare in the whole verifiable credential space. So if you think about the originating the bank who's wanting to communicate with the customer, the transit networks that are passing services, the network operator who's delivering a better call to their customer, and the customer. Clearly, the customer, the end person called benefits. None of us are answering calls now because we can't trust the person who's calling us, and all this spam likely marking on phones and so forth just scares everybody. Clearly, it's to the benefit of the originating party. The bank wants their calls to be answered because they have something important to say. But actually, the terminating operators, it's not just a cost of doing business. There is an opportunity for them to charge the originating party, the bank, for advanced information. I want to charge you nothing for a green tick saying this is a verified call, but I want to charge you a little bit for putting the name and the logo on the phone so I can make money out of it, which is useful. But also there's enormous competition coming from the likes of WhatsApp. It's when you're a single company, single global platform, it's very easy to assure the whole network. So WhatsApp for business is quite easy to bring on a brand and allow that brand to communicate with any WhatsApp customer. So the mobile operators who are naturally wanting to be in an open source world rather than a closed source world, have the opportunity to take back that competition. So we had at MWC, which is, there's 100,000 people from the mobile industry get together in Barcelona every year. We had enormous enthusiasm for getting on this journey.
Thank you. Any other questions? We've got a question in the chat. Do the credentials have names?
Alice and Bob. No, I think we. So when you said credentials, did my comment answer that? They are ACDCs and we've defined a set of schemas, and the ACDCs assert the rights to telephone numbers and identity with LEI and so forth. Steve?
Yeah. I mean, this is when I first saw the 4 first credentials being put out.
Yeah.
That were packaged together. So I was some very different impression at that point when I made the question.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Andrew, it might be an idea if we talk about the fact that there is a sort of an open source sandbox environment for the carry that shows some of these carry
Yeah, I mean,
elements together?
so our aspiration, of course, is that this becomes this has to be an open ecosystem. It's critical that hundreds, if not thousands, of operators are able to easily adopt provenance defined approach to parsing a dossier, that schemas become widely adopted, that it becomes feasible for organizations to build ACDC parsers according to the trust over IP spec. And starting this journey, I was a bit concerned about the complexity and difficulty of implementing Kerry ACDC technologies. So actually within Rich Connections, we went down just an exploratory phase of saying, can we build, with a small team, can we actually build a complete end-to-end infrastructure for issuing credentials according to an ACDC spec and for verifying full dossiers of information? So we have completed that activity, and we have a compliant implementation of VVP that we're just running through, where our aspiration is that that becomes validated by the experts in the market, Provenant, and we may, in the fullness of time, release it as an open source implementation. But to our own degree of confidence that the technology is fit for purpose and ready for use, we have a full end-to-end implementation of signing and verifying, which we're about to work on the demonstration of the interoperability with Provenance implementation.
If I could comment, Provenant has committed to release to open source a test harness that allows somebody to bring an implementation of the VVP specification to have it be certified as complying with the RFC. The VVP is an IETF RFC draft right now. So it's on a standards journey, but we're trying to make it easy for people to prove that an implementation they've written works correctly.
Well, that's great news, and thank you for that, Daniel. We will attempt to be an early entrance to your verification scheme.
And VVP, do we have the link to that, Daniel?
I'll drop it into the chat.
Okay, thank you. Verifiable voice protocol.
And that's been a separate IETF effort. How is it related to? Is it this effort, or is it a separate IETF track?
Well, it's the STIR working group at IETF that's the right home for this. So I've taken the draft there after working on it myself for a while. I took it to the STIR working group. But all of the stuff that happened in Mobile World Congress, the demo that you saw or whatever, is using the VVP specification as the basis of what is transmitted over the wire and so forth.
Cool.
Excellent. Well, I think we have hit time on the hour, and it's now just to say thank you to Andrew and Tim and Daniel. Great presentation. Thanks for your questions. Any last comments or questions?
Don't hang up until you get
Until we
my
get the
link. I just pasted it in chat for the specification. Sorry, it took me a second there.
Yeah, it's all right. Okay.
Went into the wrong chat, Daniel.
Oh, yeah, whoops. I pasted it directly. Here we go. Let's try this one more time. There we go.
Thank you. That's it.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mackie?
Yeah, I think it will be great if you can just update us every now and then about progress, and if you have any links.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Very nice.
Super good stuff. Yeah, great to see this. Keep going,
Excellent. Thank
gentlemen.
Yeah, onward. Thank you. We'll keep you updated, and thanks everybody, and we'll call the end of the meeting.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
See you in 2
Thanks a
weeks.
lot.
Great.
Excellent.
Thanks all.
Bye bye.